on everybody's mind. What do you remember today of Mr. Ratan Tata? You know, he's no more with us, and obviously a flood of memories comes to everyone's mind who either have met him or have seen him in some shape or form.
Well, you know, the first memory that comes to my mind is when I was a young officer. I met him in Kerala, and then we had a joint venture with the Tata Group in the field of tourism, and when I wrote my first book, Branding India, an Incredible Story, he launched that book. He sent a message through my brother, who was a managing director of Tata Motors, that he would like to do the launch of the book, and he did a fabulous launch in the Taj Hotel in Bombay with all the chief executives of Tata Sons. But that showed his kindness, that showed his compassion, that showed his love for young people. Later, I interacted with him on a number of times when I was Secretary, Department of Industries, and as CEO Niti Aayog. What struck me was his focus on nutrition, his focus on improving education, his focus on startups, and he started funding startups. Startup India movement had just started, and that led to a huge growth of the startup movement in India. So he has his concern for women, his concern for sanitation. So not just business, not just globalizing Indian companies, but changing the lives of common citizens in India was his huge focus. And that impressed me hugely, that he wanted to change the Human Development Index, change the physical quality of life.
Mr. Kant,
that was remarkable.
Mr. Kant, from any of your personal interactions, is there something that you remember, sir? Mr. Kant?
Well, I've had a number of personal interactions with him.
Something that stands out still today.
What I found was, what stands out was, his concern for a weak mother, giving birth to weak children, who in turn produces stunted and wasted children, and therefore why we need to address nutrition. Everybody will tell you that he acquired Jaguar, Land Rover, Chorus, Tata Tetley, but I have a very different take, that his focus on nutrition, and he came at least 5 to 6 times to Niti Aayog to partner us. And he partnered us on nutrition, he partnered us on aspirational district program, and he said we must change the lives, the quality of life of citizens here. So it was not merely about manufacturing, not merely about development, but about changing the lives of the common citizens in these districts, which was very important to me.
So what do you think was the driving force behind, this disposition of his? Was his value system, was it something that, he learned from, the Tata legacy? What was it that, made him the composition that he was?
See, one thing which was very critical was he always thought of the design of the scheme. And if the design is good, then it will deliver, otherwise it will not deliver. And repeatedly he discussed with me on sanitation, on women, on startup movement, and he questioned many of the assumptions that we had made in these. And that was, I'm looking at it more from the perspective of his being the head of Tata, Trust, rather than Tata Sons. And therefore, for him, values on many of these things, and that came from his architectural background, that the design must be perfect. And if the design is right, the scheme will deliver. And that, to my mind, was very critical for him. But he was a great believer in Indian manufacturing. He was a great believer in Indian companies. He took them abroad, and Indian companies benefited from that. The evolution of Tata's Motors as a manufacturing company, and now going ahead with Tata with electric vehicles, and his ability to think ahead and really be transformational now on semiconductors, on chip manufacturing, on R&D, on battery manufacturing. All that shows the canvas, the vision, the big thinking of the man.
So, what do you think was Mr. Ratan Tata's contribution when it came to India going global? You spoke about JLR, you spoke about Tetley. TCS has sponsored the New York Marathon on a number of occasions. What was his contribution in putting India on the map it currently enjoys?
No, the fact that he acquired Jaguar Land Rover, the fact that he acquired Tetley's, the fact that he acquired Chorus, and not merely did he make global acquisitions, but that inspired a number of Indian companies to go global. But more than that, technology from all these companies coming in and improving the Indian manufacturing was his contribution in many ways. He had the audacity to think big, think large, and even, plan big of that size and scale which had never been done before in India. If Tata Motors had not acquired Jaguar Land Rover, it would not have a global imprint. It would today, their cars would not be world class. That has all happened because these companies have gone global.
Mr. Kant, though Mr. Ratan Tata, was from the old school, when it came to business leadership and thought, but here was a guy who very quickly adapted to change. He was invested in around 70 startups. A lot of them were also working in AI. He could use the cell phone as proficiently as a teenager. What did that tell you about the man?
Well, he was and that's why when the Startup India movement happened, he started interacting with a lot of young startups, and he invested in a number of them. And that was his remarkable contribution, because his investing in cutting edge areas of growth like AI, quantum computing, many other areas, and he would interview with them personally. He would ask very probing questions. His investments made a huge difference to the startup movement in India.
Mr. Kant,
so he was very young at heart.
Absolutely, sir. So last question before we let you go. Mr. Ratan Tata was also somebody who lived through a number of phases in our country. In the 70s, he was in his late 30s and early 40s. He saw the liberalization come through. He saw the call center revolution come by and go. And of course, then social media came along. But here was a man who was never deterred. He always adapted and got along with the technology and the need of the times, and of course, the governments of the day as well. What did that tell you, sir?
He was a very phenomenal person. Very few businessmen of that stature standing who have the ability to get into new technology, understand it, great ability to work with young people, great ability to think ahead of time, phenomenal ability to have kindness and compassion. And look at his devotion to animals, look at his devotion to young people, and that was remarkable. Very few people come with these qualities.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.